faster than a speeding bullet, more powerful than a locomotive, able to leap tall buildings in a single bound. Look, up in the sky, it's a bird brain, it's a plane, it's iWalter. Yes, it's iWalter, strange visitor from another planet who came to Earth with powers and abilities far beyond those of mortal men. iWalter, who can change the course of mighty rivers, bend ears with his annoying voice, and who disguised as Walter Interranti, mild-mannered janitor for a great metropolitan newspaper, fights a never-ending battle for truth, nonsense, and the American way. And now, another exciting episode in the adventures of iWalter.
Okay, hey, yeah, it's Walter. Sorry about all this noise to start out with. You know, I'm too excited. I'm starting a show after being off for so long. It's been a couple weeks. It is going to definitely be next week, probably. In a couple days, I am going down to Blairstown, and I'm going to spend the weekend, part of the week in the weekend, because of Friday the 13th coming up. It's Walter from iWalter. Right now, it is Sunday around 8 o'clock. What time? Like 8:30. Won't get done until probably later on. But yeah, sorry, I started off pretty noisy, I know. It's been a while since I've done a show once again. Kind of funny at work, by the way, because some people are afraid to talk to me because they're afraid what I'm going to, probably put it up on the air. So somebody actually said that. She says, yeah, I'm afraid to say anything or whatever because you're gonna do your next podcast complaining about me. It's like, yeah, you're actually probably right. I will. I'm being sarcastic, by the way. I don't know what it is. My job, we just work with a bunch of lunatics. I mean, I'm one of them, but I think these people almost actually have me beat. I do have a couple sound clips that I actually did make successfully. Rush Limbaugh's made it really hard now to rip his show for some reason, at least for me, because he uses all Apple products. So I'm sure he makes sure that the people who work on a show, especially make it bulletproof to rip his shows. Because before it was real easy. I'm a subscriber to a lot of these different things, at least Rush and Limbaugh and Bill O'Reilly, but then Ken Matthews I had no problem with. It's another guy I mentioned I listened to, which I was like, I don't want to listen to him today. I fell behind drastically on both the other gentlemen because it's impossible. You spend almost 90% of your time just listening to these shows, just trying to figure out, because they give you like the highlights of information on what is good for me when I do a podcast. So everything is very recent. It's in the past 7 days or 5 days, whatever. One I just ripped tonight was from Ken Matthews' show on Friday, so that's not too bad. And another reason is I couldn't do shows. I've been working a lot of overtime when I can get it. And for some reason, I think it's a little bit suspicious, but I think it's a little bit deliberate, actually. But my boss's boss decided to say, hey, he's not getting any overtime this weekend. We don't need anybody over on the weekends because I get paid more money on the weekends. And it's like, yeah, it's a little suspicious because everybody else says, we get the same amount of these things called SOPs. And it's like, yeah, I don't think you do, honestly. But I've gotten these, quote-unquote, these SOPs, standard operating procedure paperwork we got to do online now. Most people get like one or two, and it's like, okay, well, you have from now until the end of the year is 26 of them. Well, in the last week, literally the last week, I had 18 of them, and they were all like over an hour long. And it was like, you still have 26 more to do. It's like, okay, later on this year. So, and some of them were a little bit kind of blatantly obvious to me, but when you keep on getting repeatedly this thing on reevaluating on sexual harassment several times in the last 2 months, it's a little bit like, okay, somebody's trying to raise attention on me, saying that Walter is sexually, in my opinion. Now, I don't know if this is true, but sexually harassing women. It's like I am very sarcastic. I am very open have foot and mouth disease. But everything I say is completely harmless. And I've done this stuff for like decades, and it's never been an issue. But recently, since Obama's left office, everything seems to offend everyone and everything under the sun. I mean, it's just gotten out of hand. I'm just so sick of it. And it was funny because I heard this, and I was trying to look for the part so I could make a clip out of that, where Rush Limbaugh says, anymore, nobody needs to act like an adult. People don't grow up. And I've said this many a times. I was trying to remember which show I heard it on. I believe it was Rush Limbaugh, and he literally said that. He says, people no longer need to grow up. They can just act like children. He's referring to, obviously, Democrats. But it's true. I mean, I deal with that every day on my job. It's like adults don't act like adults. The kids have to grow up on their own or take care of their parents because their parents are such a fucking mess. So, and it's totally true. I have this at home. I had the whole week. My parents were away. Yeah, I'm one of these perpetual adolescent people, I guess. But even though I hold a job and I work over 40 hours a week. You know what? I have to find this story. I might not bother to. I'm going to make this short and simple. But it was an article I texted to a friend, and it said that some woman died in Asia, China, for working how many hours? It said that she had actually, I think it was like over 100 and some overtime hours, and they said they have to address this issue over in there, And I'm trying to find it because I texted to a friend. He never responded back, which I'm not shocked. I don't really find anything shocking anymore. Yeah, but she worked some overwhelmingly amount of hours that she actually died of heart failure. And it's yeah, that's the direction I'm heading. And you got still, it's like an ongoing thing in this country. You have more and more people who are just so irresponsible. I mean, from morning until the next morning, they never go home, and they're racing their cars up and down. They have their high beams on. That's another story I have to tell you. My friend who is from Wilkesboro, I'm going to meet up with this Thursday, or Friday probably, for Friday the 13th, because we're going to go to Blairstown, had told me, Leah, when he bought his car, he got a brand new car. His other car just basically had taken a shit. I mean, it had over close to 200,000 miles, something ridiculous like that. It was finally dying on him. It was a Jeep Liberty. So he buys a new car, and the place he won, he actually asked, he said, okay, it was right next to, it was, affiliated with a Mercedes, Benz, and Lexus, whatever. They're different cars, I know. But, these high-fluent cars. And he says, yeah, the income where he lives in Wilkesboro is like $20,000 or $30,000 a year. But yet everybody drives around in brand new BMWs and stuff. And it's how do you afford these? So he asked the dealer at the dealership that was affiliated where he got his car. He didn't get anything closely remote to get a affordable, brand new $20,000 car, the cheapest one he could find that would get him from work and not cost him an arm and a leg in gas. I'm going to look up on Facebook about this thing. And the guy said, yeah, well, everybody here leases these cars. They don't buy them. They lease them. And it's yeah, so when the lease is up, they trade them back in, probably heavily damaged too. And the other issue is, I hate to say this, but these people, and they don't realize, I mean, it's total stupidity. They get heavy tint put on the windows. And I told my friend, I said, you know what? I left him a voicemail, Liz. I said, years ago, I got a car, was used. It had, it was beat to shit, but I wanted a Volkswagen Jetta. So I ended up buying it. And the door handles where the paint was all scratched up, and the person, this girl who sold me the car, she said, yeah, it was probably a woman who owned the car. She actually said that because she said that's like fingernails, the long nails that women get from trying to open the doors. So the paint on the doors was all completely scratched up. Then it also had blacked out windows, and well, not blacked out. They were heavily tinted, though, definitely. And the tint was starting to peel off, and it's one, I don't like that tint. It just looks so ghetto-like. I'm sorry to say that, but it looked very ghetto. So I didn't like that. And two, I said, here, I found this article was in Japan. I just want this off. So they couldn't do it. So I went to this place around where I live. It's in Bridgeport, which is, notorious to have like this low license dirt bags live there. I'm sorry. And it cost me almost as much as it probably cost to put on. It cost me like, I think, $150 to get this damn stuff taken off. So that's another thing. You put all this money into a car you don't even own, you destroy it, and you act like a fucking idiot. And then you when you trade this car back in, you're going to lose more money that obviously you don't have. And you got to get all this stuff removed once you turn in your lease. And these people just don't care because the money they're getting is given to them by the government. So this is what the stuff that really irritates me. I didn't expect to read any articles, but this one I have to read, by the way, or at least glance at it. It was on AOL News, and you can't believe that AOL is such a left-wing thing. I'm forced to have AOL right now because Verizon sold out their email service, and I had a choice of just finding my own, or they said they sold everything to AOL, so I could keep my Verizon.net account. That was the only way I could keep it. So it was like, okay, now I'm forced to, just to get to my mail, is to look at their stupid shit that says that, how bad the right is and how bad Trump is. It's like, why don't you go fuck yourself, AOL, because I don't care. And I'm forced to see it every time I try to check my mail. So anyway, there was this one that is interesting. It's a Japanese news reporter died after logging 159 hours of overtime in 1 month. So she was a young woman. She was only 31 years old. It says politics reporter for public broadcasting organization NHK was reportedly found dead. Now, this happened a while back, though, quite a few years ago, but it surfaced. It says found dead in her bed in July 2013, clutching her mobile phone. So something made this story resurface. Okay, it says her death was only made public, though, just a few weeks ago, after her parents pressured the company to take actions to prevent other reporters from meeting this similar fate. So, 31-year-old woman, that is really young, dies of a massive heart attack from overworked. And this is a problem in Japan, apparently, because they are a very high, stressful country, I guess. Obviously, I know everything, like the shit you hear from over in over that country is or those Asian states. They are just I'm sorry, a friend sent a funny picture. It's not very appropriate, but it is hilarious. I got to type this in. I'm sorry. That is. I'm on the F-bomb tonight, just like you know. And I am not a very good speller, so that's a given. That's another thing. I won for this test the other week, folks. It was like 8 hours long. I got it done in 6. I had so many freaking problems with the test. I can't even begin to tell you how many problems I had taking this test. So, and plus I was just like, I couldn't sleep the night before. I was so so adrenaline worked up, like worried about this test, that when it finally came, that the day came, I was like dead tired anyway. I was very worried I was going to make it on time. I actually did, but the doors were locked. It was a nightmare. So I take this test, and I haven't heard back yet. They said it's going to take a couple weeks. I guarantee you, I'll be down in or up in Jersey, and I'll hear like, oh yeah, you need to come in just to get your test results. It's like, yeah, you know what? That's not going to happen, because I'm not even in the state. I'm in another state. I'm in Jersey. So, and Blairstown is like upstate, or it's somewhere in Jersey. It's like upstate Pennsylvania, though. So, anyway, I'm going off track. Sorry about that. And it's already 15 minutes in. I get very excited when I don't do a show for a while. But I do have some stuff from Rush. Rush actually had last week? He had a show that had a 4th hour. It actually had a 5th hour. But it was like Rush said, yeah, everything's starting to back up on stories I need to do. So I'm going to add an extra hour, or as long as it takes for me to get out as much as I can. No commercials, the whole, it's going to be just, like what I do with my podcast. They last as long as I want them to last. And that's exactly what he did on, his show's only 3 hours, by the way, if you didn't know. So it went on, and after a while, like, he has this guy in the background who actually does his shows, this guy named Snurdly, and Snurdly was getting really, like, falling asleep. It was like, dude, I assume by what Rush was saying, is like, okay, you guys are give me the high five that we need to get out of here. They're getting tired of hearing Rush talk. So, and I loved it. I think everybody else did, but it just basically, these people work a full day. I mean, it's only 3 hours on the air, but whatever goes on before for, the production work, post and pre-production work is probably quite a lot. So they got stuff to do even after he leaves the air that he might have something to say, but they even have more to try to prep everything for him the next day. So it was great. So I did pull some segments off of there. It was an hour and a half in addition. So without commercials, that's a normal day for him. That's like a 3-hour show, because that was another thing. He didn't have to fight against sponsorship or taking breaks. He had taken a break if he wanted to, which he didn't. He talked for a straight hour and a half right through on, I think it was Wednesday or something. I can't remember. So he had this one woman. I looked her up. Camille. She's an Italian feminist, but a true feminist, not this nonsense you hear about nowadays. I'm going to read a little bit more about that because I actually did look her up. I can't pronounce her last name, even though I'm Italian too. And then there was another one. He talks about the high, and I'll go maybe a little bit more detail about that on the same, take the boxing gloves off, just kind of relax, smoke a cigar, which he did during his hour and a half session, about how there is an increase in anal cancer. And it's 3/4 of the cases that are now just arrived, or what do you call it, or surfacing, I should say, are all with women, young women. So, hey, we got to show that we're more, we can do whatever the fuck we want to do. Well, great, because you're killing yourselves now with anal cancer. So, and you know how that, you have multiple partners. That's basically what he said. You will hear it. And then I should wait till later. Maybe I will, but I'll forget anyway, so I'll go a little bit further. Multiple partners, and you have partners that have, are bisexuals, and women love to push that fact too, that I'll have sex with women and men. And, you have some guy who stuck his penis up some other man multiple times, now sticking his dick up your penis, up your sorry about that, your ass. And it's causing really serious problems. Like, I did find statistics somewhere, which he's not going to discuss, but I did find the stats, and it did say there is an uprise in these cases, that 3/4 of these cases of anal cancer are with females, young females. And then I had something on Ken Matthews. He's from Philadelphia area, which was really good. I'm going to play that as the last one. Camille, by the way, when I mentioned that just a few minutes ago, she's actually American, it says academic and social critic, and I believe it said she's from Philadelphia. Yeah, University of Arts in Philadelphia. Rush actually really respects her. She also really respects him. She is a feminist, but she is, predates this nonsense that's going on, that feminists are all victimized. So you're going to hear that. So that's what I want to say about Camille, but I looked that up on Wikipedia for her background information. And what he was talking about, like, she wasn't directly talking, but he was. Rush was really, again, it was really good. The show might be a little short. And again, I'm going to have to ask Todd if he is on board with this, because we're going to have a lot to do when we're in Blairstown on this coming Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. But I'd like to ask him, because maybe I can do a podcast with him. I have plenty of MacBook Pros. I don't know if I told you, I got a MacBook Pro from Gazelle. I'm going to throw a little plug. And the thing looked fantastic. It's a early 2013. I didn't see it necessary to buy a late 2013 15-inch, because I have my one I'm using right now I use for my podcasting. That's a 13-inch 2015 Apple MacBook Pro. But it's great, but it's still kind of too small for my liking for, other stuff. Mine is doing podcasting. And it's a little bit, the specs are newer, but it's a little bit slower too, so to speak. Actually, it says it's a 2016, so it's like a year old. I think this MacBook Pro I actually bought from Apple themselves. I'm pretty sure. And I got to AppleCare. But the MacBook Pro that was 2013, it's nice. It's big. It's like my old school MacBook Pro. But this one was actually, when it came out, was solid state all the way through. So that was great. And I got it for, I think, $1,100, which does sound like a lot. You know what that thing cost new when it first came out in 2013? Probably more like $2,300 to $3,000. I would say about $2,300, so. Because it was all solid state, everything, and it had Retina display. So anyway, I was going to go for the late 2013. It was like, yeah, you know what? It's just kind of not worth it for me. There is a little bit more horsepower, but not enough to make it like, oh my God, I got to get this. And I would have went for like a 2015 15-inch MacBook Pro, because actually one thing they definitely did do is shrink it, the thickness down. Not the size. I mean, it's a 15-inch, but they made it much skinnier, so to speak, much thinner, much lighter, more mobile to carry around. But the problem is, then the price goes way up. You're talking like back up to $2,000 for a used laptop, and it's like, yeah, that's okay. I'd rather buy one that's older. It's all solid state. But the one problem I had it for like less than a week, and the hard drive died. And it's not even a regular hard drive. It's an SSD. So it was like, great. So a friend told me, he says, you should just call them. You know, this is too quick that the hard drive died. And I called Gazelle, which I haven't seen the money yet. I'm a little bit upset about that. So sometime next week, in this short week, I'm going to have to tell them, listen, you never send me my check. You never submitted money back. But they offered me for the dead hard drive. They said, listen, hey, I said, I'll keep it because the laptop is in like immaculate condition. It looks like brand new otherwise. I mean, I even brought it to the Apple store, and they said, yeah, everything checks out perfect. There is nothing wrong with that laptop, minus the hard drive is bad. And they said, we can fix it, but he said, I would recommend you take it somewhere else to get it fixed. This is a guy at the Apple store on this MacBook Pro I got, 15-inch. And he showed me the price tag. He wouldn't say it out loud, and it was $1,000. And it was like, are you kidding me? And it had a 512 SSD drive. And it's like, dude, I can buy a terabyte hard drive for half that cost and get it put in at Micro Center, which I did for $60, and I'm still ahead of the game. So, and I got one that was a perfect fit for the MacBook, because everything in MacBooks and Mac computers, everything is proprietary. You can't use out external parts. So that becomes a real bitch, too. And that's why they make their prices so high, because they do that. It was funny, I actually had taken this MacBook Pro that had to be fixed. It's working beautiful now, by the way. I had taken it to the Best Buy, and I said, hey, can you put a new hard drive in my laptop? And he's like, I said, yeah, you're going to have to wait a little bit. We're kind of backed up and blah, blah, blah. This was on Monday of last week, so it's a week from tomorrow, or the week from, by the time I'm done, I'll be saying a week from today. And it was like, yeah, that's no sweat. I just need to get this fixed. And I said, I just want to let you know it's a MacBook Pro. And he says, okay, yeah, we can't touch it. He said, Apple told us specifically, you guys cannot, you can sell Apple products, but you are not certified by us. We will not allow you to take a MacBook, a Apple product, anything apart from Apple. Micro Center somehow must be paying the cash out to Apple to allow them to still work on stuff, because Apple has gotten to the point now like, hey, we want all the business so we can charge whatever we want. That's called a monopoly, by the way, in my opinion. So I think that's just ridiculous that they do that. But yeah, and they can get away with it. So, hey, people use Apple, and the more they use it, the more Apple's going to put those thumb screws even tighter. So, but knock on wood, I got it fixed over at Micro Center. I had the new hard drive. I ordered it from a place called Otherworld Computing, and perfect fit, terabyte again. Actually, I bought it on Amazon. I'm sorry, but it was from Otherworld Computing. Otherworld Computing, for the hard drive I bought, was charging $560, and then plus your shipping and shit like that, and then you got to get it installed. So it would have been over $600-700. So it was like, let me check Amazon and see if Amazon Prime has it. They had the exact same drive, delivered from Otherworld Computing, for like $60 less. It's like no brainer, and overnight shipping because I had it was a Prime product, for Amazon Prime. It's like I'm saving $60. I'll get it the next day, and I'm ahead of the game. Don't get me wrong. Yeah, I spent money that was a little bit wasteful for most people. For me, it's not, because when I go away or at work, I wanted that bigger laptop just to, when it's Walter time, I want to be able to relax and not have to squint and look on a little screen. So I got a nicer, a bigger monitor screen. It's beautiful. It's easy to carry. It fits in my duffel bag. A little heavy, not by that much. Very powerful, very fast, because everything's solid state in this MacBook Pro I have. The other one is going to be my smaller one. Is strictly, again, used for just podcasting, which I'm doing now. So anyway, jumped around a lot, but I did call, going back to Gazelle, I did tell Gazelle, hey, the hard drive died. I don't have any other problems. I took it to the Apple Store. They okayed it. So the guy said, yeah, we don't have a problem with it. We understand. They just asked for me my order number from when I bought it from Gazelle, and I gave it to him. And he said, well, how would you feel about getting $280 back for the dead drive? That's how much it would cost for you to replace the exact same drive. And I said, I don't have a problem with that. That's taking money off the one I just bought. So they're supposed to be sending me back $280, $300. They haven't yet, I don't think. I'll check again when I'm done this show. So that literally, that paid for a chunk of the drive and part of like the installment. Now, some people are saying, well, Walter, if you didn't buy it, you wouldn't have any debt to worry about. Excuse me, or anything to pay back. It's like, yeah, you're right, but why do you think I work these ridiculous hours? One is to stash money away, and two is just to get on top of bills so I can enjoy myself. Some people enjoy themselves by going to concerts. I have a friend, actually, he works, but he's got a family, and he spends money on computer parts and stuff, and he spends tons more money than I do. And I know I'm going to hear, well, that's him, not you. But he also he just told me just last night, he said, oh, I just bought a brand new motorcycle with no money down. I'm leasing it. And I looked up the price. It was like, it's a $10,000 bike. And it's like, dude, you have a family. I have no family. You have bills. I have bills. And it's a little bit, I hate to say it's a little bit irresponsible. It's actually kind of funny, though, because I said to a friend, no offense to this other friend, I'm not going to mention any of these friends' names, but the money he spent on that motorcycle is the same price I paid for my Tiguan when I traded it in from my other car. And I needed the Tiguan because, well, you don't need the Tiguan. Well, yeah, I actually did need a car that would get me to and from work when the weather had snow or like was bad weather, if it's heavy rain, because we've had flooded rain. Because I had a boss who was a real asshole a few years ago, and he said, well, I said, listen, hey, I'm not going to be able to make it in tonight, and some people are actually calling out already because the weather is really bad and you can't even get out of our driveway. And he says, well, if you don't show up, that's going to be considered insubordinate. And I was like, okay. So I dealt with that like once or twice. I was like, you know what, fuck it. I had a regular car. It was a Jetta. Traded it in. I got another car. I actually got a Tiguan, which is a cross between a car and an SUV, but the gas mileage is much better than any ordinary SUV. And I was like, you know what, I'm just going to stick with it. If I spend a little extra money on gas, at least I'm going to be able to get to and from work, and I won't have to worry about getting stuck or, going out of control like you do with a regular car. If the weather's bad, you got these idiot drivers who do 360s because they think they know how to drive, and they don't. Because this has four-wheel drive. So, but anyway, the bottom line is getting back to the main point. After everything was said and done, the car was sitting on the lot for like more time than they wanted. It was a used pre-owned car, not certified, but it was in immaculate condition. And it actually looks better now than when I bought it because there was a couple scratches, like minor scratches on the car, and I ended up getting hit by deer more than once in the car. And that actually, when the car got fixed, it fixed even the scratches. And the car looks like it's literally came off the showroom floor. So, but anyway, when everything was said and done with the trade-in, I ended up getting the car, an SUV, so to speak, low mileage. I think it was like 27,000 miles, which is really low, for like $9,000. So a friend just bought a motorcycle. I don't care if it's new or whatever. Less protection. Yeah, it's faster or everything like that. It's not very practical. For $10,000 with no money down. I had a trade-in, so I got like a couple grand. I got at least $9,000 for my old car. So, yeah, I made out, I think, a little bit better and a little bit more practical, too. Because I have something that when the weather does get bad, I don't care if it's like once or twice a year. That's all it takes for them to try to like get rid of you on my job. I don't have to worry about like saying, well, you know what, if it's bad, I really try not to. If I can afford to, I'll say, listen, I'm not coming in today. It's just not worth it because I'm not afraid of myself. I'm afraid of these other people. And plus the way they plow these roads, they wait until like the next day or so to actually plow anything out anyway, you know, and they pay all this money in taxes. So, yeah, mine's a lot more practical. A bike, yeah, it's nice, but that's a luxury. A car is a kind of a necessity. So there is a big difference there. So anyway, I'm just going on. It's actually a half an hour of me just bullshitting about everything and literally just using foul language tonight. So that's not good. So I'm going to get into this stuff. I wonder which one I should play. There's only 3 segments. I'm going to let you know right now. They are kind of long. The one with Camille, Rush Limbaugh talking about Camille, I think it's almost 6 or 7 minutes. The one on, and this is on Rush's 4th hour show. I would have had plenty of others. I can always find plenty of sound bites. It's just a matter of ripping things. That's another thing, folks. I just actually updated my computers. I just updated last night one of my dad's computers. I'm ready to like throw it out the window. Brand new one, Mac computer that I bought him, an iMac. But my 2 MacBook Pro laptops and my desktop all are running the new OS called High Sierra. Now that is more. It benefits you more so with High Sierra, the newest OS for Mac, if you have actually if you have SSD drives. So all 3 of my computers have SSD drives. My father's does not. Like, I could not afford to buy him the cost it would have cost him to buy, which I did, a brand new computer with an SSD drive. It would have cost me like $2 or $3 grand. It's like, yeah, he's my father, but for the way he breaks things, it's not worth me getting that much debt. So I got him a brand new, 3 months old from today's date, probably, a iMac, and it was like perfect because I read the reviews even as of last night, and all the reviews say the people who bought him, I got him this computer brand new, never touched, right from the manufacturer, over Best Buy in King of Prussia. Every review was like 100%, this is the best computer they've ever had. He's had major problems. Every time he fucks it up, some part of my French, folks, he says that he's got a virus. And he looks at these spam mails that he seems to get himself involved with, and he calls these people. So last night, I was up until 6 this morning, working on his computer, putting on the update for High Sierra on his computer. It doesn't run as good. It doesn't benefit him as much. It is running smoother than what he had, because they force you to upgrade the stuff. Mac does, because then eventually they're going to shut it down, your hardware, and make you buy new hardware. That's their whole game, is to get you to buy new stuff. This thing was only 3 months old. In the last 3 months, he's had more problems than I've ever seen any Mac user ever have. He's had more viruses that he thinks he has than anyone I've ever encountered who is even the biggest idiot, sorry to say it about my father, using a Mac Pro. And he called me today. I was out trying to grab something to eat at this Nathan's down the road from where I live, Nathan's Hot Dogs. And he says, I got a virus again. It says I got 3 viruses. Like, what are you talking about? You don't have any viruses. So he just exaggerates what he sees just to upset me. And I said to him, you don't have a virus. I said, the chances of you getting the virus is the chances you win in the lottery. It's that, like, even more impossible. I mean, it's like it could happen, but the chances that it's happened to him as many times as it has in the past 3 months is just like getting hit by lightning 7 times in 1 week. I mean, that's how impossible it is. But yet he thinks he is. So, I mean, the analogy is probably not the best, but it's the truth. He is just like, he doesn't know what he's doing. Yeah, okay, I just got to text somebody back. He wants to call. Okay, I'm just letting him know for, Alrighty, hopefully he gets that. No, I'm not set up for phone calls. Nor I have to set myself up to take like personal calls, and put them on there. So anyway, I got distracted. So yeah, and it was like I looked at it. It was like I gave him a free software program game for free cell, one for solitaire, Sudoku, and Sudoku, solitaire, and Minesweep. Because I don't want to put my credit card information on. Last time I done that for my dad, I put like my credit card information so I could put things on his computer, like software or games. He ends up using it to buy stuff that he thinks is free, and my bank account just got drained. It's like, yeah, not again. I'm not going to have him, thinking, oh, hey, I can get this movie off of iTunes, and I get charged for it. It's like, why is my bank account getting like down to zero? And then we got all these movies. It's like. And I tell him this stuff that he doesn't listen. So I was like, yeah, forget it. I get him stuff that doesn't cost me any money. It doesn't cost him any money. I'm not putting my credit card information. If there's a way I can transfer stuff that I buy for myself onto his computer, I would do that. But they have a thing. Apple kind of locks you in. That's a security thing they do. So anyway, yeah, he just got me so upset. I worked till 6 a.m. on his computer. And he said he had viruses. It's like a broken record with him. I got a broken record. Oh, I got a virus. Oh, I got a virus. No, you don't. You don't have a virus. And I told him that. It's like, I'm tired of this. I'm like ready to take this computer I bought him and just take it to the store and sell it as used. Get credit for it. And that will be then the story. But then her bitch and complain, well, that computer was so great. I don't know why you got rid of it. Because you keep on breaking it, probably. Or claimed that you there's something wrong when it's actually human error, not that you that I've done anything wrong or Apple did anything wrong. Because after that last time he really upset me, which he did again now today. It almost cost him $300 when he called some place probably in India that claimed that he had all these massive viruses on a brand new fucking computer. I mean, I've never heard of such a thing, folks. So anyway, I'm going off. I'm still upset about that, so I'm venting with that. I'm tired of the nonsense at my job, too. It's just like everybody... This is why I got to play these sound bites, by the way. Especially this one from Rush talking about Camille, and the other one on the colon cancer with women now from having too much anal sex. I'm not even kidding. So I want to play these sound bites. This are probably... Because, again, it's about 20... I would say about a good 20 minutes worth of sound clips. I will kind of introduce them and then put them in. And that'll be then the show for tonight. And like I said, I'm going to try to contact my one friend, Todd, and see if I should bring this stuff along down to, what do you call it? Down to Blairstown or up to Blairstown, whatever. Alrighty, so I'm going to play this. He's distracting me, this one friend. But it's I can't pronounce her last name. I gave you a little intro, and I still have it up, actually, from Camille. She's an American academic and social critic. Like I said, she's a professor of the University of Arts in Philadelphia, and she's actually, obviously, by the sounds of it, she's friends with Rush Limbaugh. At least she appreciates Rush Limbaugh. And, let me just play it because it is pretty long. So here we go. Let me play that for a soundbite. Hopefully you like it.
What had happened, Camille Paglia and I saw each other, and it turns out she, at the time, was listening to the program and loved it. She's a devoted free speech advocate and so forth. So we just had the greatest time getting to know each other and talk to each other about things. And CBS is expecting some kind of fireworks to happen. And it didn't. She is a noted art critic, and back during the Madonna era, she was probably the premier critic on Madonna. And I once asked her, I said, about criticism of artistry and performance. I said, do you think somebody like Madonna actually needs somebody like you critiquing what she does? Is it help? Oh, absolutely. Artists cannot critique themselves. Artists cannot be honest with themselves. Artists just can't be objective. They have too much invested. I said, okay, I'll accept that. Anyway, she's a feminist as well. She's an ardent, but she's not a feminist in the vein of the modern era feminism. It dates back to 1969 or 70. She's a different kind of, she's not a mad feminist, she doesn't hate men feminist. And she really doesn't like this modernist. She doesn't like Gloria Steinem at all. Well, in this Hollywood Reporter interview, I pulled out 2 quotes because in these quotes, she actually says things that I have been saying over the course of the program. One of the beliefs that I've always had about the male-female dynamic is that in a civilized society, and this derives, by the way, from not only living it, but observing it, I have always thought that it is women who have the ultimate power. And I don't mean this in a derogatory, dictatorial kind of way. I mean just power and not versus weakness. And it's rooted in the fact that in a civilized society, it is, or was, women who say no or yes to marriage proposals, to dates, to any number of things in terms of their relationships with men. And yet the modern era feminism came along and made it look like women were powerless, sex-objectified, brain-dead nothings. And women started buying into this, that they were this somehow discriminated against, constantly made fun of, not respected group. And they were turned militant and angry, and men became the enemy. And as a 21, 22-year-old, I said, this is not good. Who wants to be alive when women think you're the enemy just because of your anatomy? But that's what they were being taught in the women's studies courses. You go back to the early 70s. We're getting things like Catherine McKinnon at the University of Michigan, who was teaching women that all sex is rape, including the sex in marriage. You'd have a date with a girl and you'd find out she'd read that book and believed it. Then you have to sit there at dinner talking about it. Now, men will do whatever they have to do to get where they want to be with women. If they have to fake it and say they love Susan Sontag, they'll do it. If a woman wants to go look at the dinosaurs in the museum, the last thing the guy would ever want to do, but he'll be there if he thinks there's going to be a payoff. It's just how men are. I once saw a line in, it was a book called A Sensuous Woman. And it was a book written for women about how to keep men, how to get them and how to keep them. And there was one chapter in there on something called a silken swirl. I'm not going to describe it, but it was how best to do it. Anyway, in this book, there was a chapter on how to meet men. And it had one piece of advice. And it worked for men, too. For men, the answer was, go get a bunch of women's magazines and turn to the sections on where to meet men, find out where you're supposed to be and go there. Find out where women are being told you are so they can meet you and then go there. Men would do it. Because it's women who have the ultimate power. And I don't mean wielding power in a dictatorial way. I don't mean it in a derogatory way at all. I'm talking about in the legitimate structure in a relationship. Even now, how many, you ask a guy, you want to play golf Saturday? Got a check at home. Might have some honeydews. Now, some people might think that's insulting, but no, the guy has to wait until it's okay. There might be husbandly, fatherly responsibilities would take precedent, and it's going to be the wife that says so. Look, I know there are exceptions. There are exceptions to everything, but I'm talking about on balance. I've always thought that it's women who have the power. And I've thought maybe that's how it's been designed, by the way. I didn't have a problem with it. Never have had a problem with it. I'm intrigued by it. Well, I read this piece by Camille Paglia. Young women are being taught that men have all the power and have used it throughout history to oppress women. Women, she writes, don't seem to realize how much power they have to crush men. Strong women have always known how to control men. Oscar Wilde said that women are complex and men are simple. Now, Oscar Wilde was gay, so he is a favored quote machine in the gay community. But he was a clever guy. But I read this, and this is exactly or fairly close to what I think. Strong women have always known how to control men. Not all women are strong. I mean, some women, everybody's needy. As I say, there are exceptions to this. But in the area of society that's civilized, and I'm not talking about, I know some people when I say that, well, how do you explain rape? I'm talking about the civilized. We're not a nation of rape, I would say. See, this is another problem. We're normalizing people to think that these kinds of things are common, that rape is common, particularly in college camps. It's not. But who is it that brings that stuff up? And who is it tries to normalize? Who is it tries to tell women that that's what their life is going to be if there are men around? It's the left. And they're politicizing and poisoning everything. And Camille Paglia's point is that feminism has done its job. It has erased from women's identity the understanding of how much power they have. Here's another quote. There are all kinds of complex currents in men's relationship to women that feminism refuses to acknowledge. The main one is men's often very unstable or ambivalent relationship with their mothers. That's what I see in Hugh Hefner's notorious lifestyle in the Playboy Mansion, where he stayed and worked in his bedroom all day long in his pajamas. It's a blatant regression to the womb world, exactly as Elvis Presley evidently desired. Elvis's wife complained that all he wanted to do was stay in the bedroom all day long in the dark, watching TV and having hamburgers. There's a strange kind of craving there for maternal nurturance, she says. I think feminism is wildly wrong when it portrays men as the oppressor, when in fact men, as I have argued in my books, are always struggling for identity against the enormous power of women. I'm telling you, I couldn't agree with that more. The Hefner stuff, that's a different subject, but I couldn't agree with that more.
Okay, hey, sorry about that. I kind of talked over a little bit of it. Yeah, well, millisecond. Anyway, yeah, I kind of try to half listen to it again. I know when I ripped it, I know what I was doing, but this was a couple days ago at work last week. I forgot about you Hefner. He died like this past week, last week. Excuse me. And I forgot. He was only like 91. I mean, that's fairly old, but I'm 50, so it means I only got 40 years to live. But personally, seriously, I thought that man was going to live forever almost, or at least a lot older than, almost like Stan Lee did, as old as Stan Lee, because that man had everything to live for. I mean, he's Mr. Playboy himself. He's the one who made, Playboy magazine. So, the guy had everything he ever wanted. He had women, 18, 20-year-old women for his whole entire life. He had nobody older than that, because the women in those magazines that he had, became the Playboy bunnies. They're all really young aged women, and he was in his 90s, and he was getting 20-year-old women. Every man's dream come true practically. So I found that hard to believe. But the main point for that whole thing, that whole segment that I just played, by the way, more than you Hefner. I mean, that's sad to see the man pass away, seriously. Is, what I wanted to point out was that Rush was saying, or paraphrasing what when he had talked to Camille, is that, what women's lib used to live for was that women do have all the power, but thanks to the Democrats and 8 years of Obama, he's just basically brainwashed especially this millennial age, to believe that, the women are victims and they have no power. And it's like, it's the complete opposite from the truth. I mean, it's like they have all the power. We and my friend Matt had this discussion years ago in college, like, for a woman to be in a relationship, that's a choice. For a guy, one's a choice, one's a chore. Like, it's a full-time job for a guy to convince a woman to go out with you. And it's not that difficult for a woman. A woman, I don't care who you are, what you look like. You could even be an amputee. You're going to always be able to get a man. You could be the most hideous, horrendous-looking female on the face of the planet, but you're going to find a man. You're not going to have a problem. You're going to be still beating him off with a baseball bat. I mean, I'm just using that as a... But you know what I mean. It's not impossible for any woman to find a man. I don't care what you look like, who you look like. Even if you just shit your pants, you're going to find somebody. I mean, you could be like no teeth, and you're going to find somebody. A man, they got to be on their game, and it's always like women are trying to convince you, oh, no, a man can look whatever the way he wants to look like. He always is not going to have any problems getting through life. It's like, yeah, actually, it's the opposite. A woman does not have to work if she doesn't wish to. That's a choice. If she wants to have children, that's her choice because it's her body, for one thing. And it's her choice on who she picks as a mate, if she wants any or doesn't. If a man wants the same stuff, they got to work really hard to get the same thing. I'm sorry, but it's the truth. It really is. You can say what you want, but it's the truth. Actually, it was kind of funny. Here's another thing, and this came up. I get it cut once a week. My hair is starting to grow back, by the way, after a few weeks ago I had my head shaved. So I got these managers at this place. I think it's Hair Cuttery over in Oaks. And they were bringing it up, and I said, yeah, I don't know why, but so-and-so, I'm not going to mention her name, because now I do remember her name, I think. The girl who normally cuts my hair. And the manager actually said this, not me, but I said, yeah, I don't know why, because she brought it up. She says, yeah, your hair's growing in good. It's coming in really nice. Because I literally had a shaved head. And I said, I don't know why she did it. And she says, oh, she probably had a bad day. She had an argument with somebody, and she had taken it on me. Now, imagine me doing that I have a bad day as a guy, and I just go in, if I'm a male, a barber, because some of these women go to barbers, and it's like, you know what, I'm just having a bad day. I'm just going to shave this fucking girl's head, or this guy's head. Do you think that would not have repercussions, that I would either get fired, a lawsuit against me on something as frivolous as hair that grows back, or anything else? You would not hear the end of it. Me, I just kind of bit my tongue and just let it go and just pretend it never happened. But yeah, that's another thing, by the way. It's just a double standard. Hey, woman has a bad day, can't do anything about it. Oh, that's another thing. I don't know how many cases I read. They were like an overwhelming amount of cases of women raping kids, school teacher deal again. And it's gotten to the point now, I think guys are finally catching on to, because the one friend who said, yeah, that was a lot of cases all in 1 week that you found. And it was like from one article he sent me on something else. It was attached to all these stories of sexual misconduct with women being teachers, having sex with underage girls. One woman had it, I think her case was up to over 200 times of having sexual misconduct with a minor as a teacher. So instead of send her to jail or give her a fine, they're basically just going to let her go and basically fire her. And she got suspended right away. But no lawsuit, no fines, no nothing. Over 200 times, almost 230 times of sexual misconduct with a minor. But there was a story similar to that with a man. He got like a $400,000 fine and I think a couple years in jail. Same thing. Same situation, but just one's a male, one's a female. So, but anyway, getting back to that point, because I want to go into my next segment, which is kind of funny, by the way, folks. And it's almost actually an hour right now. what was I going to say? There was something on that line, and now I actually lost my train of thought. Damn it, I hate when I do that. I really hate when I do that. But yeah, there was those cases, sex scandal things. I know I was talking about that, and I apologize. I'll have to kind of listen back if I want to and figure out and by then it's just going to be worthless. Because the next one I'm going to play, by the way, is going to be Rush talking about the colon cancer thing. But, yeah, that's more people playing the victim card, by the way, and that's why, and you can't give the same punishment to a woman that you give to a man. It's like, oh, I remember now. Thank God I do remember, so I don't have to go back. Men are finally getting to the point, by the way, boy, I'm getting loud sometimes, that they're actually saying, they're no longer saying, well, where were these women when we were in high school? The stories have become so regular on the news of women raping kids. Now it's gotten to the point these guys are finally wising up, and they're not saying that any longer. Like, where was I when I was these teachers, quote unquote, these hot teachers? Because some of them aren't that attractive at all. They're now saying, wow, this is this is kind of unfair because women are doing the same punishments as men, but they're not getting punished at all. Like, men are starting to realize this. It's like, you haven't realized this for the last decade when this bullshit's been going on. Now, all of a sudden, it becomes, like, apparent to you. Where were you? Did you finally wake up and realize this? I'm sorry, but it's ridiculous. So anyway, let me play, because it's on an hour, so I want to make sure to get these next two segments in. Next one's going to be a little shorter. Rush Limbaugh talks about anal cancer with younger women. So here we go. That's the next one up. And this was from the 4-hour show.
According to the American Cancer Society, the future looks grim. And here's a quote. The American Cancer Society estimates there'll be 8,200 new anal cancer cases in 2017. In the absence of national screening recommendations, more than 50% of these individuals will be diagnosed at stage 3 or 4, when 5-year survival is less than 40%. This creates a major public health concern. Now back to the piece by Megan Fox. The study shows that anal cancer comes from the sexually transmitted virus HPV. Uh-oh. What it doesn't mention is why the gay community is so susceptible to contracting HPV. Perhaps the answer is too politically incorrect for the LA Times. In other words, Megan Fox is saying that there's a report in the Cancer Society that the next big crisis is anal cancer. But the LA Times doesn't report why. They don't say that anal cancer, the majority of cases, are coming from sexually transmitted virus HPV, and they don't say that the gay community is most susceptible to contracting HPV, because none of that's in the story. It's just a story about anal cancer as though it's a separate, but no explanation in the LA Times story for why. And Megan Fox here at PJ Media is explaining, hey, if you read the LA Times story, they didn't tell you 90% of it here, gang. Here's the rest of this. That's what her piece is about. NBC reported on a similar study that was done in Hawaii involving women who contracted anal HPV. They also danced around the cause. NBC did. NBC said, do I have the second page before this? Yeah. NBC, here's their report. It's not clear exactly how the women contracted anal HPV. Those who developed infections are more likely to be young and white, with lower levels of education and income and a history of multiple sexual partners, studies show. But we still can't figure out why it's like 10 guys named Mahmoud Abdul Hakim, and we can't figure out if there's a terrorist among them. Women who engaged in anal sex were also at higher risk although transmission could have occurred in other non-sexual ways. The findings are important because anal HPV infection is strongly linked with anal cancer. That's the NBC story. They're reporting the rise in incident, but they are getting nowhere near who is contracting it and why. Non-sexual ways? Megan Fox writing, really? Non-sexual ways? What ways were those? The article does not elaborate, but goes out of its way to deny the very findings discovered. So here's her conclusion. So what we have here is a clear warning that putting things in... Let me reword. What we have is a clear warning that putting things where they don't belong could be a bad idea, and yet the media is unable to report that clearly. Why? Could it be that the LGBTQ WTF, that's her own, that's funny, the LGBTQ WTF. Could it be that lobby doesn't want the media to share the details? Researching the negative effects of this is darn near impossible. Very little is written on the subject, even though we know of infections and other things are common. No one will report on it. Instead, Teen Vogue magazine is writing how-to guides about anal sex and cancer for your minor daughters. And then Megan Fox at PJ Media, if you want to know the truth, it still exists on the American Cancer Society's website. Until the gay Stapo find out somebody who's telling the truth and put the kibosh on it. It's pretty funny. LGBTQWTF. The gay Stapo.
Okay, the gay Stapo is back, whatever he just said. Okay, I'm back. So yeah, there you go. There's some more information. I actually did find this article I pulled up after listening to that, and it was from basically a cancer site on anal cancer. So it breaks it down. It's on my Facebook page. It goes from, anal cancer and says stats and facts. That's the only one I'm going to read. Risk factors, prevention, symptoms, diagnosis, diagnostic procedure, treatment, what a colonoscopy surgery is, whatever. Colostomy? Oh, excuse me. Post-treatment prognosis, and what is a colon and rectal surgeon. It's a lot of shit is what it is. So anyway, the stats and facts is what got my attention because Rush did not go into that. So I will, and it is actually after an hour, just a tad bit, so I'm not going to try to take long, and I'll put that last segment, sorry about that, last segment that I just pulled today, otherwise I would have been done by now, that I got from listening to, Ken Matthews, because I really like the dude. Anyway, yeah, because I know there's one thing you can get from having too much anal sex, and it's with women called the pink sock. That means your intestine just basically falls out from your bottom. Anyway, it says in 2016, that's not that long ago, about 8,000 adults in the U.S. were diagnosed with anal cancer. And it is believed that 1,080 people will die from the disease. About two-thirds of the anal cancers affected women. So two-thirds of these cases are women. So there you go. I'm not making this up. So this is on a thing on colon cancer. Anal cancer accounts for about 1 out of 2% of all cancers of the intestines or intestines. Anal cancer, I just read that. Anal cancer most often affects people from the ages of 55 to 64. But in this thing, and what Rush was saying, but in this article, if I would have read into it more, it's mostly young people, young women. Far less common that colorectal cancer, anal cancer affects about 1 in 500 people. in their lifetime versus 1 in 22 people, the number of anal cancer cases has been steadily growing for years. Only a small number of the anal cancer spread. It has cancer spread, but when they do, the disease is difficult to treat. Anal cancer spreads most often to the liver and to the lungs. So, yeah. And they go into the HPV thing, too. I don't want to read all this stuff because I'll just take forever, and my reading's just really bad. But I find the whole thing just entertaining. That the statistics say that it's 2/3 of these cases are women, and it's the women who, again, have the upper hand on about sex. And this is obviously what's causing these anal. I'm sure this wasn't a problem years ago, in our history, but I think it's became more of an issue when you have to have all this kinky, bizarre sex, and you're have created more problems for yourselves. Not for me, but for yourself. So, hey, maybe I'll get rid of some of the garbage in our society this way because they're just literally killing themselves. I have tons of stories on my Facebook that I'm looking at now, and it's like, I just don't even want to get started on them because one, it'll just get me upset, and two, it'll just be such a long show, it won't even be funny. So I'm going to go into Ken Matthews. I kind of just marked it because I had to mark with something to remind myself. I'm going to listen to it again. But basically it's about, the crybaby Democrats complaining about that everything should be given to those who don't deserve it. Give it to them for free. Just take it from the rich or the people who are the working class and give it to everyone else who doesn't want to do a damn thing. So that's my next segment. I'm going to do that now. Ken Matthews from Friday. Here we go.
And that statement I read from one of the great political minds of the left, especially in the eyes of people in Pennsylvania, from U.S. Senator Bob Casey, was word for word. So what the Trump administration did earlier today is they changed the mandate in Obamacare. Obamacare is filled with things that, Rahm Emanuel's brother and Michelle and some big donors and some other people thought up to shove down our throat. Remember, not one Republican voted for Obamacare. It was never vetted. It was never debated. And like Nancy Pelosi said, why don't you vote for it? Once we vote for it, we're going to read it. Okay? Well, I kind of knew that once Obama was out of his fiefdom, we would get a president in there that would say, wait a second, and start giving some freedom back to the American people, like reducing regulation. And regulation is like, I call it the cheater's law. In other words, laws are supposed to be legislated. They're made by lawmakers. That's why we elect lawmakers, and they're voted on. Because the lawmakers, whoever they may be, they represent us, supposedly, in a constitutional republic. And regulations are just, I don't like that person doing that. Give me my phone. Yeah. New regulation. Don't drive over there anymore. What do you mean? No. You get in trouble if you do it. That's regulation. And there's too much of that. There's hundreds of thousands of pages of regulation in the United States. Because people in power think they are powerful enough to impact your freedom. And then there's just pure ignorance. But we'll do ignorance on another day. So, here's where we are now with this mandate, which you're going to see misrepresented repeatedly from Rachel Maddow to Brooke Baldwin on CNN, okay? The government can no longer force a company to provide birth control for you if they object on religious grounds. Now, I don't think they should be able to force a company to provide anything for you because a company is a private entity. And I don't think the government should be able to force any private entity to do anything. That's my take on it. But again, I'm not a woman. So I'll go to the next step. I don't think the government should be forced to pay for anything. They should not be forced to pay for anything. So that's where we are. And Senator Bob Casey's response is typical leftist gibberish. Denying women access to birth control is wrong. And that's exactly what the Trump administration did today. I don't think he did. I missed it. I read it, and I missed the part where it said, attention women, you are no longer able to purchase birth control. Skip that aisle, move to the toothpaste aisle. Attention women, all women, stay away from the birth control aisle, according to President Trump. Senator Bob Casey has said that you have been denied access to birth control. Ma'am, deodorant's fine. Stay away from the birth control. But there's a lot of people that will believe that. There's going to be uninformed millennials who probably get their mom and dad to pay for the birth control anyway. They're going to be running around, some of them saying, oh, did you hear what Trump did? Yeah. Women can't get birth control anymore. Yeah. Holy moly. Now what are we going to do? Maybe we'll have to testify in front of Congress and become a hero. Denying women access to birth control is wrong, said Senator Bob Casey. Who is denying any woman in the United States access to birth control? That would be my question for Senator Bob Casey. Who is doing that, Senator? Who has to? No, but he goes one step further and he says an employer has no right to deny. Okay, an employer has the right to do anything he wants, he or she wants. And the employer is not denying the woman working for them access to birth control. When you're done at work today, go across the street to the Walgreens or the CVS or whatever and get some birth control or call your doctor. So once again, it's smoke and mirrors. It's like everything that comes out of the left, from the left, their mouth, everything. If President Trump says we need to stop illegal immigration, then Senator Bob Casey will say, President Trump has no right to deny immigrants. President Trump says the government can no longer force a private company, a nonprofit, and a variety of others, including educational institutions, to provide birth control. In other words, translation, to pay for something they don't want to pay for or provide. It's not the government's right. The government has no rights. The government has no rights. What are we going to... Am I going to have to give a seminar to Senator Casey? The government has no rights. You and I have the rights. All the government does is chip away at them. And if you've got a U.S. Senator in 2017 who has evolved to this point where he's saying to you, your boss has no right to deny you birth control. How did that even happen? Think about that. How did your boss, think about that line, the employer has no right to deny a woman access to birth control. Okay. How does your boss play into that? Unless you demand your boss to pay for stuff. That's what this is about. So it should read like this. Senator Casey should have said, Donald Trump's done it again. Now, he's not even going to force people to pay for birth control for another person. Because that's what Obamacare is. Obamacare is just like the ridiculous phantom minimum wage that allegedly works, okay? And you guys on the left all go around with the talking points. Obamacare is wealth and income redistribution. It's taking a bunch of money from one group of people, forcibly giving it to another, so the recipients are all excited about what a great job you did.
Okay, hey, that's the last part of my show. Yeah, I hope you liked that with Ken Matthews. He did make a valid point. Yeah, it's wealth how did he say that? Wealth redistribution. You know, redistributing the money from people who make it to people who don't want to earn it on their own. They want to take it from others. That was what we had for 8 years with Obama. I'm sorry. A lot of people don't want to hear that. I'm sure I'm going to hear some flack if anybody listens to that at work. But it's the absolute truth. Ken Matthews, by the way, is from, our neck of the woods. He is from, Pennsylvania, and he is absolutely right about that. And I'm personally just so sick of that whole nonsense of, I should give everything. This year I've made way under $100,000. It's not even November yet. It's October. And I paid over $30,000 in taxes for the year. So that's I paid over 33% in taxes, and I'm not even close to making $100,000. I guarantee this year I will not make that kind of money. But under other people's eyes, oh yeah, well, you know what, you make too much. Bullshit. I have people at my job who make double what I make, and they're paying taxes too. Well, they should wise up and realize that. Stop this nonsense of just giving the money to all these, desperate, I don't need to work, lowlifes. And I don't want to hear, well, look at the people in Puerto Rico or down in, other states down south that are suffering because they lost everything. If the money was going towards them, but I'll tell you, all that charity money is not going towards them. It's going in some senators or some local jurisdiction's pocket, probably to try to reestablish the Democratic Party, in my opinion. But it's just all propaganda. It's all bullshit. It's complete bullshit. And the area I grew up in for the last 50 years has gotten so progressively bad. I mean, it's just unbearable to live here anymore, because I got to deal on a daily basis just a bunch of degenerates who don't want to earn anything. They want to give it to me to give them everything that I own. I shouldn't have anything. Everything I earn and work for should be going towards their better life. For them to have a better life. I should just pay for everything for them. So when I hear this, it just reminds me of the nonsense we deal with still. And it was funny because I listened. I'm going to let this go then, but because I want to end the show. But even Rush, or was it Ken Matthews or Rush, who I was listening to, said that, Trump's only been in office for 10 months. Obama's in for 8 years. And all you heard about for the last 10 months is how bad Trump was from the second he got elected until now. And it's just grow the fuck up. Accept the fact I had accepted for 8 years. You can accept it, and it's only been 10 months, and you've just been crying and screaming and kicking. The people who, can't stand the fact that they didn't get what they wanted and up to the point before he even was officially elected that they weren't sure. Sorry about that. I was picking something off the floor that fell off tissue. And not the way you think. People are saying even, who supported Hillary, Trump loses, which he is. That's what they said. You're going to see all these backlashes on from Trump supporters and Trump, that he's not going to accept the fact that he lost the election. And then you find out, wait a minute, no, he didn't lose, he won. Then all of a sudden, the second later, the tables, not only turned that she lost, but you hear all these people screaming and crying and saying, oh, this is not fair. Now we got to watch out because the pussy grabbers out there. I mean, it's what? Grow up. Anyway, thanks, everyone. Have a good night. This is Walter from iWalter. I hope you enjoy what I talk about and the segments that I've been adding onto my shows the last couple of times. Have a good one again, and we'll see what's going on. But next weekend's a big weekend for me again. This is Walter from iWalter, and yes, I am signing off for now.